I'm Tom Atwood, and I'd like to introduce you to the nursery and garden that Abby and I run here at Hellebore in the south of the Lake District National Park. When we first came to the site here almost 15 years ago, it was as visitors to a dilapidated nursery, rapidly being consumed by 20 years of neglect, and a garden disappearing as native plants from the local woodland were beginning to take hold. It was a further 5 years before we had the opportunity to take on the site, and by that stage it was beyond a rescue mission. The garden and the nursery in its entirety had to be started again. Now, there was an inherent charm to its ramshackle form, and we spent time in its dilapidated growing areas just to understand and absorb why and how things had evolved over the years that it had been here before consigning it all to history. We are both plants people and gardeners, and we wanted to bring all of that to the nursery and not only give it a new lease of life, but grow a much larger range of hardy plants and expand the garden areas throughout the site. Our aim from the start was to create a space that at every opportunity felt like walking into someone's private garden. The garden for us is fundamental to everything we do here. Our intention from the very start was to take the garden areas that had once featured as part of the old site and increase them and add completely new areas of planting. The borders are filled with the plants that we grow and love. It's our chance to show off how we use them, and also to inspire people and show visitors to the nursery how they too can use them in this part of the world. We are in limestone country, and the natural bedrock is often very close to the surface. We have a hopeless natural depth of topsoil and have to build it up wherever we plant, typically using a crude stone edge to hold back the soil. But it's amazing what you can get away with. Now, the borders aren't just there for aesthetic qualities. We use them to trial plants to see how well they fare in our Cumbrian climate, because a new and exciting plants may not be suitable in this part of the world. The garden areas are now approaching 9 years old, and in that time they're beginning to mature. Young trees are now developing a good structure, hedges are knitting together, and with each subsequent year the effect harmonises the site. The greatest springboard for my garden design work are the gardens here on the nursery that spark that initial conversation with a visitor who might have been inspired by a particular combination or style that they've seen in the garden. On our nursery, we grow over 900 varieties of hardy garden plants, and everything is grown on site, much of it from seeds, cuttings or division. Our biggest constraint is the limited space that we have. Operating in an area of less than an acre, the nursery is at times difficult to juggle, and we are both plantaholics and really have to restrain ourselves when deciding what to grow. Our site has everything we need to grow the numbers of plants we need for our sales area, but also for the plants I use in my garden design work. We're surrounded by hundreds of acres of mixed deciduous woodland made up of birch, hazel, yew and ash. The the woods are home to a host of rare butterflies, orchids, and wildlife from deer to foxes and a broad range of birds. And the woodland acts as a classic shelter belt from the worst of the winds when they hurtle up the valley. And we hadn't appreciated the extent of this until you climb up to a high point and look down on the site. We use a combination of covered structures and large open areas that gives us the flexibility we need to grow a range of plants at different stages in the season, from the depths of winter to the heat of August. Hellebores are glowing with every inch of their being now. I've always found hellebores do well in Cumbria. They enjoy the ready supply of moisture, and provided you feed them regularly, they'll rarely disappoint. Hellebores are known by the common name of Christmas or Lenten rose. They are part of the buttercup family and are traditionally grown in areas where shade is dominant. They grow best in a good depth of fertile, loamy soil. But if you have shallow ground as we do, you can mulch the plants generously with leaf mould and homemade compost, and they will respond accordingly. We started growing the Lady series of hellebores years ago. They're really strong, reliable plants, and we shoehorn them into the garden wherever we can, where there's shade from July onwards. Other great hellebores are any of the Ashwood series raised over many years by the nursery of the same name. Strong, pure colours that are highly attractive propositions for any garden with a smattering of shade. Now, contrary to what a lot of the books say, you can in fact lift and move small or established clumps of hellebores. The main thing is to get a really good root ball of soil, and when you're having transplanted it, if there's a spell of dry weather, it's just to keep on top of the watering for those first few months, and they'll be fine. I always think of February as the glorious calm before the storm of early spring. Everywhere in the garden, the soil is peppered with the green shoots of bulbs and perennials emerging from their winter dormancy. The buds on the trees are beginning to swell as the sap flow begins and the soon-to-emerge blossoms begin to form. Miniature Iris reticulata with their exquisite flowers are all the more enticing at this time of year. Now, the plants we grow on the nursery have spent the winter under cover. It's not to protect them from the cold, but the wet. Now, many plants in containers will soon perish if left outside over the winter, so keeping them dry is crucial. Over the coming weeks, we begin to tentatively bring out the stock we have grown over the previous 2 years. We reopen this month, and although at times this can seem a gesture when the snow may be on the ground, we have to be ready for when spring arrives. There is a constant ebb and flow of plants. As one area is emptied, another will begin to fill with freshly potted stock, some of which is for this year, but also for next season. For all of us here, this is such an exciting time. We have the opportunity to immerse ourselves in a new season, meet new visitors and share our love of plants with our fellow gardeners.